Just a big pair of brass balls. That's what it's going to be.
Welcome to Egghead Anarchy. I'm Alex.
And I'm Brian. Today, we're going to talk about a couple things. We have a couple news bits. Then we're going to jump straight into our thoughts on Captain America Civil War. And we will have two separate segments for that. We will have a spoiler-free segment, which we'll do first. And then we'll have a segment where we do some spoilers. And we'll be sure to warn you guys before that comes up, so that if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want to avoid spoilers, you won't get any. And then after we share our thoughts on Captain America, we're going to start a new segment where we just kind of talk about whatever things are pressing to us, like whatever we really want to talk about. I'm not sure what we're going to call that right now, but today we're going to talk about weird game design choices that game designers will make. So, without further ado, let's get into the news. Okay, so we have two new segments we're going to talk about today. The first of which is a new video card from Nvidia. This looks to be really cool. So it looks to me like they have, so the official story is that they have released
several new video cards. The next line, the 10,000 whatevers. 10,000? The 1,000 whatevers, I guess, actually. 1,000.
Like the one that they mentioned specifically was the GeForce GTX 1080p. I'm sorry, not 1080p. That's HD resolution. The GeForce. Well, I mean, that's right. I mean, 1080. Yeah. Come on. The GeForce GTX 1080
and the
no P.
The 1070 too.
Oh, I didn't say. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So I guess the GTX 1000 series. The big thing about this that I think is really cool is that these look like the Titan X cards. They just use less power, they're more powerful, and they're a whole hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So this looks really, really cool.
The 1080 is like 500-ish?
Yeah, $599.
And the 1070 is like 380.
Yeah. And the big thing, I mean, they're more powerful, obviously, but it looks like they put some special things in there for two things, which are very closely related, which is multi-projection, simultaneous multi-projection for multi-screen setups, 2-3 screens. And then similarly, they have special things in there for VR, which is, simultaneous multi-projection. For super high-end gaming setups, like where you have, 3 widescreen monitors connected and you want to play The Witcher 3, or Oculus or Vive setups, these cards look like they're probably going to be the way to go. Mm-hmm. This looks really cool. And they're not crazy, stupid expensive, which is nice.
Yeah,
not a whole lot to say about that. Just thought it was really cool. That came out, I think, today or yesterday.
Yeah, it's kind of more of it's the next line of cards from Nvidia. Just like the next line of cards from Nvidia always is the next line of cards from Nvidia.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what ATI is going to do with this.
Yeah.
Because last I read, the newest line of ATI cards was actually a better value than the newest line of Nvidia cards. And I mean, obviously, they came out after Nvidia, so that's going to be the case. But I like to see this back and forth.
That's not a bad idea for them to differentiate from each other a little bit. Like ATI is like, we're the better value for the money, and But yeah, also it's really interesting to see how just like all these technology manufacturers are going in on the VR stuff.
Yeah,
maybe that's really going to stick. Like
I don't know. We'll see.
I know. We've talked about it in the past, and there's some like hesitation. But geez, man, everybody's like, yeah, we're totally going to support this on the tech side, at least.
Well, I can see why companies like Nvidia and PC manufacturing components, and even developers to some extent, would jump on this, because it's the next big thing. It's a feature to check off. It's something to advertise. It's something that will grab consumers' attention.
The guy who's buying the top-end card probably also ordered a Vive.
Yes.
Because he's buying all the top-end stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, but longevity-wise, in a year or 2 years, I think we're going to see where all this stuff is at. And so this isn't an official news item that we're going to talk about, but just thinking about this with VR, if moves like what Oculus did recently keep happening, where Oculus decided to take a portion of the units the Rift units that they were going to be distributing to backers and to people who did pre-orders, and they decided to send those to retail outlets.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of Kickstarters that have gotten in trouble for that.
Yeah, but, well, I mean, okay, yes, but fuck Oculus. I mean, really, and I'm sure that they have reasons and that all of these agreements with the retailers were set up a long, long time ago, and they're just trying to fulfill their end because they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot on the retail side.
And I mean, they're owned by Facebook now. We could always just blame Facebook.
No, well, I don't. I mean, this is Oculus. Because the thing is, Facebook doesn't, like, they're pretty laissez-faire with their third-party properties. You know, like Instagram is not Facebook Instagram. It's still Instagram. Messenger, they spun off into a completely separate application. And aside from Oculus being at the F8 conference and things, like, I mean, Facebook doesn't seem to be overly involved with what Oculus is doing, and they don't seem to be like orchestrating it too much. So I really feel like this is an Oculus move. And if this continues, if this kind of terrible PR move keeps happening, this is just going to shoot VR in the foot. And Sony's doing something similar with their PS4 Neo. That's terrible. I mean, terrible. And it's pretty clearly a play for VR, but fragmenting your user base and trying to sell them two brand new products at the same time is not the way to go. So if both if both PlayStation and Oculus end up shooting themselves in the foot with VR, all we're left with is the HTC Vive, which is stupid expensive and going to be a very, very small portion of the market that's going to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
And where are companies like Nvidia going to be then? You know what I mean? Like, there's very few people buying this stuff, and why would it be a marketing thing for them? So yeah, I think in a year or two, we're going to see if people are still doing things like this. So that's it. All right. So now, what are you going to talk about, Alex?
SpaceX plans for Mars.
Yes.
SpaceX is saying, and of course, Elon Musk saying that they're going to be landing on Mars as soon as 2018.
Yes.
So 2 years from now.
There are a couple important caveats with that, though.
Yeah. So not people, just landing on Mars. But it looks like what they're planning on landing is one of their crew capsules, but just without any crew on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So they just want to test to see if they can do it. And they want to it looks like they want to get telemetry data and just information on the process of landing so that when they send people, they know what to expect, or they have some kind of an idea what to expect.
And this will be in collaboration with NASA.
Yes.
So NASA will get the data from SpaceX, and then they will also offer technical support for the plans, which is pretty cool. Sounds like their main plan is just to land on Mars and go, ha-ha! We have landed on Mars. Suck it.
Fuck you, Blue Ocean. Not Blue Ocean. What is it? What's the Amazon one?
Oh, I don't know.
Blue something. Yeah. Fuck you, Amazon. Fuck you, Jeff Bezos. We got to Mars first.
And then if they land something that could have had people in it, they can just go, give us money and we'll put people there. Like, we could do it. It could happen.
Yeah. What's really interesting to me is if they're going to do something like where they put weights in there or something that would be roughly equivalent to passengers.
Yeah.
So that they could say we even know weight wise what it will take to get there, because that would be huge. I mean, that really would be a big thing, especially money wise.
To be fair, it doesn't sound like they're planning on bringing it back. So that's an issue.
But is it really? I mean, we haven't brought anything that's gone to Mars back so far.
Well, I mean, if you're going to send people, you have to be able to bring them back.
Not necessarily. Mars 1 isn't coming back.
Yeah, but all those people are probably going to die. Like, that's what all the experts are saying. Like, yeah, they'll probably all die. I mean, they might not, but probably.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm a bit more optimistic on the whole Mars 1 thing.
Yeah, well, if Mars 1 goes and SpaceX can make deliveries to Mars like already, and they know how to do it, like that makes Mars 1 much more viable. Like,
very true.
If Mars 1 has somebody who can just make a bunch of deliveries for them, and if they can, that'll mean SpaceX is there to get paid for that, you know?
That's true. Yeah. Very, very cool stuff. Science is awesome. All right. So now that we have finished up with the news, we're going to move on to the main topic, which is our thoughts
Civil
on
War.
Yes. All right. We will see you guys in a second.
We're talking about Civil War now. So we went and saw it actually together Thursday night.
Yes.
And it was pretty good. Oh, and we went to the dine-in theater, which I'd never been into before, which was interesting.
Yeah. Wait, so it was pretty good? Only pretty good?
Yeah. I thought it was a little bit distracting, especially at the beginning.
Wait, what was distracting?
The dine-in experience.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, so the dine-in theater was pretty good, not the movie.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the dine-in theater was pretty good.
Okay, yeah. I thought the exact same thing. Like, in the beginning, especially when all the waiters were, like, walking around and stuff, I was like, screening room. When that comes out, I won't have to deal with this. Screening room. Just wait till that comes out. Everything will be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the conversation that I was having with Sanara, which was like, hey, I went to see this and I thought it was kind of distracting. And she's like, well, when you're at home, you sit down and like eat some food while you watch a movie. And I'm like, yeah, but also at home, I can rewind it if I miss a line or something. Or if I'm like, wait, what just happened? I can just go back.
Yeah.
You can't I don't have a remote in the theater. I can't just pause it and like rewind a second.
Oh, yeah.
Or be like, oh, I need to get some water. Hold on. And just pause you can't.
Yeah.
You got to be distracted. Yeah.
Well, and you don't have people walking in front of the screen at home either.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was a lot of people. I think at one time I counted that there were 4 people standing in front of the screen, like walking back and forth. Mm-hmm. That was pretty distracting.
It wasn't as loud as I'd like it to be. I think you feel the opposite about that.
I thought that too. Yeah, that was the first movie that I've seen there that I was like, this could be louder. Like this could be a little bit louder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so believe it or not, we're actually going to talk about Civil War.
Well, I thought that was worth mentioning. Just kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it is, yeah. Well, because that's one of like the supposed to be the premier theaters in St. Louis, like one of the nicest theaters in St. Louis, and it is.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think, yeah, I for one welcome our screening room overlords when they arrive.
The format's a little weird. I kind of like the traditional thing, but how they've kind of expanded the traditional theaters. So you can get like chicken fingers just at a regular like theater around here. You just have to go to the concession stand and get them and then walk back. Like that kind of makes more sense because then all that stuff is happening not in the theater and before the movie starts. Yeah. But anyway, let's actually talk about Civil War at this point.
Yes, let's talk about Civil War.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
Oh God, it was so good. It was so good.
It was not at all the movie that I thought I was going to get, actually.
How so?
I was expecting it to be more politically than it was. I was expecting something more like Winter Soldier, honestly, in tone and kind of politicness. But it was way more Avengers than it was Winter Soldier, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I completely agree with that. Like, there was not in the beginning. There was a hint of politics.
Yeah,
and there was a hint of here's what's happening in the world and things.
Yeah.
And then it was definitely about the Avengers. It was about the characters and why they were doing things and their perspectives on things. But I wouldn't say that it was ever as... There were moments where it was lighthearted, but I wouldn't say it was ever as lighthearted or jovial as the Avengers.
There were times where it definitely was. Like the big centerpiece fight scene.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, there were times that it was very lighthearted, but overall, I don't think it was like overall. I thought it was much closer to Winter Soldier in terms of tone than Avengers.
And it could have just been my expectations for it. And your expectations. Because I was expecting it to be a lot darker than it was.
Gotcha.
And so that was more surprising to me. It's good for sure.
Yeah. One thing that super impressed me is the action sequences.
Yeah.
They were just so well choreographed, so well executed, and
action sequences way better than Avengers 2. Way better. Avengers 2, I was really disappointed with the action sequences. This, back good. Back to the good stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's acrobatics. I mean, everything that they do and the interaction of the characters. It's not like one character having an action sequence and then they switch to another character. The way that they interwork all of the powers and connect them and have them play off of each other is just brilliant, And I think that feels much more to me like what the Avengers should be.
I did think that the kind of like the first and second action scenes kind of drug a little bit. Maybe a little bit too long. I think the beginning of the movie was kind of slow. And I did kind of mention this. And also that a little bit confusing. There's a number of minor characters who show up. And the movie's kind of like, hey, here's a minor character. And I was like, I don't remember who that is. Should I remember who that is? Luckily, thank God they did this. They put in a couple of lines of dialogue that kind of clue you in.
What? So who are you thinking of? Like, what are examples of this?
The one guy, the guy in the very first fight scene.
Oh, Oh, yeah.
From who is from Winter Soldier, and also another character from Winter Soldier. I don't want to get too specific in our non-spoilery part, but they do have a couple of lines of dialogue that just are there to remind you who those characters were, which were very helpful to me, because otherwise I would not have remembered who they were. Yeah,
I do feel like the last half of the movie, or the last 2/3 of the movie, were definitely much better than the first.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like there was the setup. I don't know that it could have been done any better, but it felt very setup-y. And then once that was all taken care of, I felt like the movie just took off. Like, it sprouted wings and just flew, and it was awesome.
It's kind of the new trend in these films to have like an initial fight scene, at least it has been for the Avengers kind of stuff, that doesn't have a setup and it's just like, here's in medias res some fight that was happening with the Avengers when we're just going to jump into it.
What? By the way, what does in medias res mean?
Oh, starting in the middle.
Oh, okay.
It's a narrative technique where you start in the middle of the story instead of at the beginning.
I gotcha. Okay, cool.
So yeah, the Avengers did the same thing where it was like, we're attacking this base. We don't know why yet. We're just kind of attacking the base. And then that kind of gives the hook that leads into the rest of it. This movie also does that.
Winter Soldier did that too.
Did it? What was the beginning of Winter Soldier?
With the boat. The boat. They were doing the mission on the boat.
Oh yeah. With Batroc, the Leaper.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I do think that's kind of interesting, but I think it's, at least in this movie, it was a little bit, could have been sped up a little bit, maybe.
I don't know that I agree with that. Like, how could they have sped it up? Because to speed it up, I feel like they would have had to cut something out, and I don't know what they would have cut out.
I think they could have cut down the fight scene just a little bit, honestly.
But it was so good.
Yeah, I liked Punchy McPowerfist a lot. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I liked his power fists. But yeah.
That needs to be his name, for real. Punchy McPowerfist.
I don't know what his real name is. It's like Crossbones or something.
I don't know. Call of Duty Ghosts guy. Like that's what I kept thinking every time I saw him. I was like, oh, he looks like the Call of Duty Ghosts, the guy from the cover of Call of Duty Ghosts.
Oh yeah. It is Crossbones.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, but definitely, what was it? Punchy Iron Fist?
Power Fist.
Punchy McPowerfist?
Because he pretty much has exactly the power fists from Fallout.
Oh, I haven't played Fallout 4.
Or 3. I mean, it's basically the same power fist in either game.
Oh. Yeah, I just played the first, 15 minutes of Fallout 3. I kept dying all the time. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go back to Skyrim.
Fallout 3?
Yeah.
Or Fallout 4?
Fallout 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, as soon as I was done with Megaton and I had to go somewhere else, I went out of the wasteland and just kept dying. Like, I didn't have enough ammo. I kept being irradiated. I just kept dying. I was like, oh, there's police cars.
I thought that game was too easy. But maybe I'm not a scrub like some people.
My name's Alex, and I'm gamer badass, apparently.
I don't know.
I think that Fallout is too easy.
Anyway, I do think the movie gets way better as it goes along.
Yeah. Well, and the last fight scene
is amazing.
Oh my God, that was so incredible.
It's pretty even, maybe, in terms of political, like, who's right. I would say that throughout the movie, Iron Man tends to make a lot of dumb choices.
Oh man, I think we just fundamentally disagree on Iron Man as a character.
Oh yeah, I think he makes some dumb choices. I think he always has good reasons to make them, and I think his reasoning behind what he's doing tends to be a little bit more maybe the correct side in this fight, but that like the way he goes about doing everything is just, he's bad at it. And also, and you know what, maybe we'll just save some of this for the spoiler section because I want to get into.
Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely have things to say about this, but I don't know how to say it without spoilers.
What do we want to? Anything else before we end spoilers?
No, I think that's probably good.
Yeah, go see it. It's good. Spider-Man and Black Panther, both.
Black Panther. Oh my God, they're both so good.
Amazing, yeah.
So good. And for very different reasons.
Yeah.
Explain why you liked Black Panther, Alex.
Oh yeah, Black Panther is probably has the strongest arc, if maybe not like the only character arc in the film, where he really has some development and goes through some stuff throughout the film and changes his mind and like who he's going to be as a person. Yeah. And I saw that and I was like, yes. I was not at all excited about the Black Panther movie prior to this. I was like, yeah, sure, Black Panther, it's fine, whatever. And now I'm like, yes, give me that film. I want that film. This seems awesome.
Yes. Oh God, he's so good. He's so awesome. And it's even little things with his character.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. There's so many little things about this movie. Like, they didn't skip over any details at all. Like, there are the first fight scene that involves Black Panther. You see, like, characters will land, like they'll jump and they'll land, and there's like a very like heavy sound, and you can clearly hear them landing. And then Black Panther comes down, and it's just like this, like, it sounds like socks on carpet or something. It's like he's clearly like a ninja, like a super badass, totally in control of everything ninja that you can't hear if he doesn't want you to. And it's such a subtle, excellent way to communicate what a super badass this character is.
Yeah, and there's that little fake out where you think a character's somebody else. You know what? Well, again.
Yeah, again, spoilers. And so really quick, Spider-Man is just so Spider-Man's character, I think, is a really good example of Marvel leaning on the cinematic universe that isn't even theirs. Yeah. Because like Spider-Man has no backstory, but the filmmakers clearly trust what's up with Spider-Man.
Yeah. And they hint at it too.
It was Well, it was Sony's movies. Like, Sony set the backstory, but they're like, you know what? Maybe we change a couple things, maybe. Yeah. But you know what's up with Spider-Man. We're not going to explain it again. Yeah. We're just going to, here he is. And he's awesome. Oh man, he's such a great character. It's, yeah.
The actor they chose, very good choice.
Yes.
He's written really well. Also, again, was not super excited about that Spider-Man film. Now, excited about that Spider-Man film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, good choice on Marvel's part. Bumping Inhumans for Spider-Man Homecoming. Excellent, excellent choice.
All right, so yeah, let's head to spoilers now.
All right, so now we get to the good stuff. We're going to talk about our thoughts on Civil War, including spoilers. Yeah. So, if you don't want spoilers, skip this section, go to the next chapter. And just as a quick reminder, we do have chapters for all of our episodes now. So, depending on how you're listening, they'll be displayed a little bit differently. But if you want to skip this, that's easy to do. Just click on the next chapter, which is going to be the weird choices in game design. And maybe come back to this after you've seen the film to see our thoughts. So, spoilerific stuff to start with. My favorite thing about the movie was that I don't feel like it, like I was saying in our previous episode, what I hoped happened. I don't feel like the film chose sides with Captain America or Iron Man. I think it did a really good job of presenting what they thought and why, and how those thoughts were valid. Yeah. And then dismantled both of them.
I think it worked pretty well. I think we can see a lot. I think what they kind of do is they set up, and Iron Man really has the best proposition from the beginning. Iron Man's like, how, and see, there was something that I didn't understand that they said in this movie, which was that the Avengers are a private organization, which I was not under the impression that was the case from the previous films.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that.
I thought they were a government organization, like a U.S. government organization, just like S.H.I.E.L.D. was.
Yeah, I thought they were just kind of, I mean, I guess I didn't think about it in terms of like the term private, but I always thought that they were. Like, I always thought that, like, they were funded by Tony Stark. They were loosely associated with S.H.I.E.L.D., but that was the closest that they got.
In Avengers 1, they were created and run by Samuel Jackson's character.
Right, but nobody but him wanted them as a thing.
I know, but he was like, this is the Avengers Initiative, I'm creating it, and he's a government agent, and he was acting under the government's, like, even if he was doing it because he really wanted it and other people didn't, he was still creating this program in the government. And that's what I always assumed, that it was still in the government. But it seems like maybe since he dropped out, like, they just did not have any real governmental oversight, which means that I more agree with Tony Stark, like, that they should have some sort of official, like, capacity.
Well, up until about the middle of the film. When they're just like, no, fuck governments, because they just lie to people. And what I thought was good too, though, is that even the government's side of it, like even the things that the government did, like it wasn't, they had reasons. You know what I mean? And like it was believable to me that like they didn't want their stance.
And
was
I think that
believable,
initial idea that they need oversight is correct, but it kind of immediately goes badly when they're like, also that oversight is going to be the UN Security Council.
Yeah.
because the UN Security Council is pretty notoriously bad about individual members blocking for their own political benefit. So, you know, it's not like it would legitimately, like in real life, that would handicap the Avengers. And we can see how that would happen in the film, too.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, it's like, well, that's not a great kind of idea. And then Iron Man's like, I know it's not great, but what else are we going to do? We need oversight. All of these countries want us to have oversight. We have to do it.
Well, and then the film explains why he really wants this oversight.
Yeah.
And that's because, and they never directly explain this, but what I got was the reason Pepper Potts wasn't in the film is because Tony Stark left.
Yeah.
Like he pushed her away, and it was because probably because of the events in Iron Man 3, he didn't want her in harm's way. He didn't want her to get hurt or killed or just be a part of the bullshit that he was dealing with. And a way to mitigate all of that and get her back in his life would be to have some sort of oversight, so that at bare minimum he could have some kind of a scapegoat. You know what I mean? So that if things do go wrong, he wouldn't feel solely responsible. Because another thing that I liked about this movie is that he 100% took responsibility for all the shit that he's done in the previous movies, including Ultron. Which I thought was really good. Like I thought his character in this movie was really, really good in that he was no longer this douche who tried to blame things on other people.
Yeah.
He owned up to what he had done. And that to me made his decision, like, you know, to sign the Sokovia Accord made a lot of sense.
But then throughout the movie, I think it gets less and less. Like, we start seeing where Captain America in the beginning is like, this is not going to go well. We start seeing it not go well, like immediately.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Every time he tries to enforce like the law, like things get worse.
Yeah.
And then it ends up being like almost exactly in the place that Captain America said it was going to go. Because Captain America is like, what if they don't let us take action when we need to? And then at the very end, Iron Man's going to Thunderbolt Ross and he's like, oh, we just found the evidence. Bucky didn't do it. This other dude did it. And he's going to like activate a bunch of super soldiers who could cause a whole bunch of trouble. And then Ross is like, nope, you're not allowed to do anything about that. And you're like, well, that's exactly what Captain America said was going to happen. So it kind of feels like I'm like, yeah, you guys should definitely have oversight. I thought you did already. Yeah, you should have some sort of official capacity. But also, it should not be General Ross. General, I have a floating black site prison Ross. And it should not be determined by the Security Council. Like, those are the wrong people.
Well, that's the thing is, I mean, like, and this is kind of just a principle in general. Like, whoever is going to oversee something needs to have a better moral compass than what they're overseeing, like what or who. And the problem is that at the end of the day, for as fucked up as they can be, nobody really has a better moral compass in the Marvel Cinematic Universe than the Avengers. Individually, they can be way off, but taken together and because they trust each other so implicitly, as a whole, they're pretty infallible, you know, like morally speaking.
And I think specifically Captain America has the best moral. It's basically one of his superpowers is that he has the best moral compass of everyone.
Yeah. Which in this movie, I mean, they show like that can be a very difficult thing. You know, like it's not like, he's just always right. And because he's always right, everything is easy for him. He's like, no, like when I see a bad thing going south, I can't ignore it. Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could. And that's not just some platitude that he says. Like things get really fucking hard for him. Yeah. Like they don't get any easier. Even toward the end, like at the end, he's an outcast. He loses his fucking shield. Yeah. Like Iron Man is like, that's not yours. That's mine. Yeah. Give it back. And he drops his shield. Like, what is Captain America without a shield? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's incredible. I mean, he gives up one of the things, especially iconically, like, you know, in the movies that makes him him. Yeah. You know, and this movie also does such a great job of showing like just how unbelievably powerful that shield is. Like he uses it for fucking everything, you know, like without that shield, he wouldn't have beat Iron Man. Oh yeah. Pure and simple. He just wouldn't have. And now he doesn't have it anymore. So like, what is he? What does he do? You know, the freaking end of this movie, it was amazing too. That scene with Martin Freeman where he is talking to the villain and he's like, how's it feel? You lost. And the villain's like,
Did I lose?
Yeah, did I?
Basically, no, I didn't lose. I got exactly what I wanted. I wanted to break up the Avengers and fuck them up as a team. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
This movie kind of has an ending where it is like actually the villain won this movie.
Yes. Well, and I think ultimately the villains of this movie are the Avengers. I mean, they really are.
I mean, the villain won, and also, like we said in the previous non-spoiler section, or freaking Black Panther won. Like he definitely won.
Oh yeah.
He's out for revenge the whole time.
Yeah.
Because he thinks Bucky killed his father, and he's gonna kill Bucky. He's gonna get that revenge. And then he sees what happens to all these people who are out for revenge. Tony Stark wants revenge for his parents. Zemo wants revenge for his family. And it has not done anything positive for any of them. And at the end, he is like,
yes,
okay, I've learned my lesson now. I've had my arc. I realize what I need to do. And that is not be consumed by revenge, to take the right choice, to just arrest this guy and let him go to the authorities. And then, now he has his own Avengers team too.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. The really interesting thing to me about the whole Black Panther thing is that he is tied to his government.
Yeah.
So Captain America ended up losing to the extent that he's now being sheltered by a superhero in the exact position that Iron Man wanted to be.
Yeah.
And Iron Man is in the position that he wants to be, and he seems to have a significant amount of power and like autonomy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's still, playing the bigger dick game with General what's his name?
But Black Panther is in the kind of unique position where he is the government. He's king and he's a superhero. So kind of he can give himself sanction to do whatever he wants.
Oh my God. And that line, like where I forget the exact line, but he's talking to, what is it? Iron Man or Bucky or whatever. And he's like, as a king and a warrior, let me tell you, blah, blah, blah. That gave me chills. I was like, whoa.
Isn't he talking to Captain America? Because Captain America was just defending Bucky, and he's like, I'm the Black Panther. The Black Panther is the greatest warrior in our society. And now I'm also king.
Oh, yeah.
How long do you think you can stop me from getting what I want?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
And what he wants is killing Bucky. He's like, you can't. I'm king and I'm a superhero and I'm the most badass. And you just, what are you going to do? I have my government sanction to do this. I'm seeking out a man who killed our king. My father. I really have legitimate political reason to want to do this. And I'm a superhero who can go with all of you. Also worth noting, like you see Captain America fight. He's very like mean potatoes boxing kind of thing. And then freaking T'Challa is just like spin kicking, like crazy moves and shit.
Oh yeah, crazy psycho ninja, and he's fucking bulletproof.
And that's the kind of thing that you see, because they kind of, the first time you see him, they fake you out, because Bucky makes the jump off the building to the second building. And then you see somebody make that jump, but make it better and jump further. And you're like, oh, that's Captain America. Like,
oh yeah, because it's just a shadow.
Yeah.
All you see is a shadow. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, no, that's Black Panther.
Oh my God. And can I just say that's like, I think that may be the best intro shot for a superhero that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That one shot was just so perfect. Because the whole theater, like there's the shit and we're like, oh, it's Captain, just like you're saying, oh, it's Captain America. And then fucking Black Panther lands and everyone in the theater starts cheering. Like oh God, it was so good. It was so good.
I have to say that's why I normally don't go to see movies during the opening weekend. Because I'm not down with the wooing. There was a lot of wooing during this movie. There's a lot of people like,
oh yeah, there was wooing, laughing,
yeah.
Well, and, I mean, there were a couple of points where it was kind of a problem because like people were wooing or laughing and like someone said something. And I was like, oh, I feel like that was important, but I couldn't hear what it was.
Exactly.
But I mean, the movie was doing what it was supposed to do. Like everyone was having so much fun. Like it was so entertaining.
But
Yeah.
But what I was saying too is that you see Captain America make the jump too. And by far, T'Challa was the best at that jump. Like, he jumped way further than Captain America and Bucky jumped. He landed better, and he like landed like attacking Bucky from midair.
Yeah.
Like you can see how good he is throughout this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And they do it really subtle ways like that. Like just how he's fighting is way different.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then the whole car chase sequence, like basically everything he does there is just what the fuck is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Like he slashes the tire and like, oh, God. Yeah.
That sequence I thought was probably the one that was the most too long.
Really? Oh, man.
Yeah. There was a point during that where I was like, all right, is this, how long is this going to go on for? It had a couple of...
Maybe if it wasn't so good and so inventive, it would have been too long to me. But it was just like, it seemed like everything that happened, every little kind of, vignette thing back and forth was just so different.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of like, did we need to see Captain America like steal a car during the middle of this? Like a fairly long sequence of him.
Well, yeah, because he can't keep up. Like as powerful as he is, he couldn't keep up running with those two.
Yeah, I thought that's I just think like the same basic thing, they could have cut it down a little bit. Instead of having him like jump up onto the window, smash into the window of the car, have the car stop, him jump down off the hood, open the door, pull the dude out, get in, knock out like they could have just had him running, grab the door, open it, throw the guy out, jump in kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's little things like that that actually make the rest of the movie more grounded though. Like for example, another thing that I think maybe is what you're talking about is the same scene where Black Panther is like clinging to the back of that SUV.
Yeah.
And they're like, driving around like that's there for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's just kind of like hanging out on the back of the thing. However, I think that was a really subtle grounding thing. You know what I mean? Like the movie was very, very clearly communicating we're not skipping over minor details just to be fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like all that stuff together was probably 5 seconds. Like between both of the scenes that we're talking about was probably 5 seconds of screen time. But it made things feel kind of more connected. Like things don't just magically happen in this movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that you could have done that without having it magically happen. It was just a pretty, I don't know, whatever. That sequence could have been a little bit shorter. It's not a huge major complaint though. But yeah. And again, it was mostly, I think if that had even come just a little bit later in the film, because I was kind of waiting for them to set up some more of the political stuff, to see the strikers' black site prison and stuff like that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm wondering if when this comes to like iTunes and Blu-ray, if they're going to have like an extended version, because I feel like I don't know if more political intrigue would be interesting, but maybe it would be.
Well, I don't know. I like political intrigue. I know probably there are plenty of people who are like, no, please don't put any more talkie in my movie with superhero action punch up. But I'm kind of into the talkie thing. So
well, and I think it could definitely be interesting to make the government's side of things more fleshed out. You know what I mean? Like I definitely feel like as the movie went on, like it was a lot of fun and everything with the Avengers just progressed really well and there was a lot of nuance there. But after the first third of the movie, they just kind of fell off with everything else in the world. You know what I mean? And that like the motivation behind imprisoning the Avengers, I think like that could, not that it was like too light, but I think that could benefit from 5 extra minutes of kind of explaining why this is such a problem.
I do think, there are some problems too with that, because they start out the movie saying like most people think you're heroes, but there's a small number of people who think that you're not heroes. But then they go and they start just like doing really terrible things, arresting them, throwing them in black site prisons. Surely everyone who thinks they're heroes now is really offended by that.
Yeah.
And upset. And we don't see any fallout from that, but like there has to be fallout from that.
Yeah.
There's no way there's not. And maybe we'll see that in future movies.
Yeah, like maybe the Black Panther or because something else I'm wondering that I'm I guess thinking too is Marvel's kind of setting a precedent for their movies now that they're all going to be ensemble movies, because like how do you go from Age of Ultron, which was an Avengers movie, so that makes sense to be an ensemble movie, but now a character film was just Avengers 3. How do you go back to, like, for example, Black Panther? How do you go back to just Black Panther's story? Because the reality is now that it's going to be Wakanda versus the world, and how do the Avengers not fit into that?
I think that it's going to be more like, and I think they're already kind of moving towards this, to to maybe bundle up a couple of heroes at a time, not the whole cast like they're doing here. That'll be like a special treat occasionally, but they're going to do more stuff like Ragnarok has Hulk in it probably. So, you know, they're just going to be like, yeah, this has Thor and Hulk. That's so that way we can, you know, give you a little bit more value, not just focus on one character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for obviously the couple like Benedict Cumberbatch's thing.
Oh, Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, yeah. As I pointed out as we were leaving the theater, here's yet another universe with Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch in it now. Martin Freeman plays a pretty minor character in this, but they were just like, you know, we've got Benedict Cumberbatch. Let's also put Martin Freeman in this.
Yo, yeah. Well, and I hope Martin Freeman is in more stuff because I like his character. Like he's one of those clearly menacing characters who comes across like so sweet and congenial. You're like, that dude's fucking terrible. Like something is going to happen with that guy.
Yeah. He had some pretty funny lines in it. Especially like at the end, that part where he's gloating and he's like, you lost. And the guy's like, nah. And then he's like, yeah.
What? Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. And so can we talk about the last fight scene and the lead up to that just for a minute? Because like I really didn't know where that was going to go. And honestly, it went in a completely different direction than I thought. Like I was not even for a second thinking that Bucky was responsible for killing Tony Stark's parents. Oh my God, what they showed, that was brutal.
Oh yeah.
Like they didn't pull away. Like I was, wow.
Well, they pulled away from his mom being killed.
Oh, but they showed him strangling her. Like for what I would surprise me as a long time. Like I was like, whoa.
They show him put his hand around the neck and then they pan up so that way you can't see her being strangled, but you can see Bucky's face while he's doing it.
Yeah, that was. Man.
Yeah, and then again, Iron Man. I feel like he makes a completely understandable choice, but not a really great choice to fight Bucky and Captain America at that point.
Well,
it's totally understandable, but it's not the best point. And also, like Captain America is right. Like he was completely mind controlled. And how many times have how many people been mind controlled in these fucking movies?
That's true.
And how many times has Iron Man seen that? It's happened to him. He fought the Hulk that one time when the Hulk was killing a whole bunch of people because he was mind controlled. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true.
And he wasn't like, fuck you, Banner. You killed those people. I don't care if you were mind controlled. And this is more personal, so it's completely understandable why he thinks that, but just...
Well, and there was, again, just a brilliant flourish of very subtle storytelling with his line to Bucky when he said, you killed my mother.
Yeah.
Right after they showed him killing both his mother and his father, the only one he mentioned was his mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. Like, that's cold, Tony. That's fucking cold.
They also set up how he was going to be irrational with this at the beginning when he's like, I've created this therapy machine and this is what it shows me.
Yeah.
It shows me this moment where they left and this is how I wanted it to play out, where I told them I loved them and we had this sweet family moment, but it's not what happened. They just went and died.
Yeah. Well, and even in that moment, his mom was being all sweet and tender and caring and his dad was just an asshole. You know?
Yeah.
Just, oh my God. Again, that line when I was like, whoa, like that was incredible.
And I think that final fight scene was the best in the film
oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe. It has the most emotional weight for sure. And the way it's framed against that like
absolutely
bright vertical lined like weird window thing.
Yeah.
Looks amazing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the whole like again, Captain America without his shield, he's clearly losing to Iron Man and he's like, just stop. Just stay down, like we're done. And he's like, last warning, right?
Yeah.
And Captain America just gets up and he's like, fuck you. Like, I am not ever stopping, ever. I don't care if you're going to beat me. I can do this all day, you know? And then, I didn't think this was possible. But the whole thing from the, like, where they showed in the previews, they showed, Captain America and Bucky, like, beating on Iron Man.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing with, like, he's my friend. And he's, well, I used to be your friend, too. That was even more impactful in the movie than it was in the preview.
Yeah.
You know, just because of like the build up and everything. I was just like,
I think
God,
that a lot
damn
of
it, man. This movie's just what?
the previews had a lot of different emotional weight. Like the scene where we see roadies falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
And that in the preview, you're like, oh, he's upset because because the Winter Soldier or somebody else has taken out Rhodey.
Ooh, and that was so good.
But then
because it was the Vision who was responsible for that. Like, whoo.
The Vision who is responsible for it after Tony told the Vision to take that shot.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so then like the emotional context of that is that Tony, like, he's the one, he feels responsible for this.
Yes.
And he created the Vision, and he's the one who sent them on that mission. And like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Oh yeah.
So again, like completely different emotional context. Same thing with the like, he was my friend, so was I. Like, that's not at a moment where like the trailers kind of frame it that like Tony's kind of down at that point, but it's the opposite. That's the point where Captain America is down in that fight and Tony is on top.
Yeah.
So
yep.
When Captain America is saying like, he's my friend, Captain America is more like pleading, like you can't kill him.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. God. All right.
And we haven't talked about Spider-Man or the big set piece fight in the middle. I think we should mention those.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, really quick. So first of all, I just want to say Ant-Man, Paul Rudd.
Hilarious.
Fucking perfect.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So perfect. Like he's in the movie for what, like 4 minutes total. And it's just, and that's another thing too, is so many of these characters are in this movie for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and it doesn't matter. They're just perfect. Like it's so, and the whole when Paul Rudd meets Captain America, can I just say that scene was brilliant? Oh my God. Like that's what I would do in real life if I met like Captain. I mean, it's so good. It was so good. It's so good. And then like his thing, like I thought it was a water truck. And then he gets big.
Yeah.
Like not only was that funny, but it was contextually clever.
Yeah.
They used it really well, and it was necessary. Like they needed that to get ahead in that fight sequence.
Especially since, like, previous to that, if you look at the teams, they seem pretty kind of unbalanced.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the Vision unbalances them right there, but then you've also got two flying characters, and I think Captain America's team only has one. Like they only have Scarlet Witch.
Well, also, Scarlet Witch is the only one with like crazy superpowers on their team. They've got a lot of,
which I gotta say, I maybe it's because she's new or whatever, but there were a couple of moments where I was like, yeah, Scarlet Witch should just be totally owning all of these people.
Yeah.
Like really.
She has a lot of like offensive capability, but she has basically zero defensive like kind of skill.
Well, and she was primarily used as defense throughout the whole movie.
Yes, she does throw up shields and stuff. I mean, she has like no like, she doesn't have super strength or durability or anything. She's like magic-y stuff.
Oh, that's true. She's just a normal person who has telekinesis, basically.
Yeah. I do think that was something in Avengers 2 that's dumb. Where
What's that?
They try to explain the powers of her and Quicksilver, and they say he's fast and she's freaky. Freaky is not a superpower. She has telekinesis and limited telepathy. Like those are her powers.
Oh, I don't remember that. I don't remember them say that she's freaky. But yeah, that'd be totally stupid. Yeah. That would piss me off.
Because I did feel like previously in Avengers 2, her superpowers were super, super badly defined. It was not at all clear what they were. In this one, it's like, that's telekinesis.
Gotcha.
And also, from the last one, she can get in people's minds. She doesn't ever do that in this one, though.
Yeah, it was just telekinesis, yeah. And also, too, I gotta say, the Vision, a little bit underwhelmed, because he didn't really, like, it was basically just, he could kind of go through stuff, and then he used the Infinity Stone as a laser, basically, and that was about it.
Well, also, the Vision the whole time seems like really, really reluctant to be fighting anyone.
That's true. That's a good point.
And I think that is what makes that. The Vision is actually pretty good, because he's always, like, the whole movie, he's like, I feel bad about this. Like, that's
true. That's an excellent point.
And he's more like, I'm really concerned about everybody's safety, and like, so he's not just like laying into people.
That's true. And actually none of them really were. I mean, you know what I mean? Like they were all kind of like pulling their punches a little bit and like not really.
There's that really great set with what's his name? Clint and
and Black Panther.
Not Black Panther, Black Widow.
What?
Where they're having the fight in the big scene.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, are we still friends? And he's like, depends on how hard you hit me. And they're like having a little fight. And then Scarlet Witch walks over and just slams Black Widow into something. And she's like, you were pulling your punches. Get with it, man.
Yeah. And then there's the moment with Black Panther too, where he's like, hey, I'm Clint, and Black Panther's like, I don't care.
Yeah, I really liked him in this movie. He was pretty great. Again, not in it a whole lot, but yeah. Also, him taunting Iron Man at the end, like that seemed to be also one of the turning points.
But him taunting
for Iron Man. Yeah, when he's in prison.
Oh yeah.
And again, we get another similar scene where, what's his name? Paul Rudd's character is like, Hank Pym said never to touch. Where Paul Rudd's character said Hank Pym said never to trust a Stark. And Tony Stark's like, who are you?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, man, come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Spider-Man. Let's talk about Spider-Man for a second.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. First of all, okay, Aunt May and Spider-Man are both really young, yes. But they touch on it and kind of say we don't care. And Tony Stark has a really great comment about Aunt May being crazy hot. But I mean, honestly, I think that this Spider-Man makes a whole lot more sense in this universe than any of the ones from the Sony movies, partly because he's like, especially in these fight sequences, you kind of needed like his levity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he really brought a lot of lightheartedness, and he was hilarious. Like he was a kid. He was a fucking kid.
Yeah.
Who was.
You can also see how good he is, too.
That too.
Again, the way that Black Panther is from his fight scenes, like he's taking on two people at once. He's taking on, who's he fighting? It was Hawkeye and the Falcon, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he's just fighting them both at once, and he's just kind of like not having a problem with them.
Yeah. He's not overly stressed or anything. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And he's just bantering the whole time, and he's not out to like really hurt them either. He just keeps like tying them down and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. But he's clearly never.
That was really good.
Well, at least when he's fighting people directly, he's not like overly scared of anything. Like it's all just kind of fun to him because he's good enough to handle it. Yeah. And so Spider-Man, like I really appreciate the way that they dealt with Spider-Man in the same way that I appreciate the way that they portrayed Aang in Nickelodeon's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like he's a kid.
Yeah.
And they really get that well. And the way that the other characters treat him, they treat him like grown-ups, like serious ass grown-ups in a big ass fight with lots of things on the line would treat a kid who just walked into this thing and was trying to own it. You know what I mean? They're like, fuck you, man. Come on. like yeah, sure, you're like
There's
16
not normally
or something.
This much talking.
Yeah, exactly.
In a fight.
Exactly. Well, and then at the end, Iron Man is like, no, stay down. You're done. Just stay there. You're done. It's like, yeah, it's like a dad. You know what I mean? It's like, just chill out. Just time out. Just go to time out. It was great. It was really, really great. And he felt to me like Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
he feels really Spider-Man-y. He's very quippy, very talky while he's fighting. He's a nerd, and the character is very funny.
Yes.
And worked really well.
Well, and he looks like a good Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, like his costume works. I think the eyes work. I remember reading some things online and people were like, what with the eyes? Like that works. And like
I thought that was weird.
What, the eyes?
The eyes. Like I don't have a problem with it. They like introduced a problem and then solved it immediately. And I was like, that's okay. I guess fine. He's like, yeah, I have really, really great senses, but sometimes they get to be a little bit too much. So I wear these dark goggles. Yeah. And then in the next scene, it's like Tony Stark designed him this new suit and you can see the eyes contract to like limit the amount of light or whatever that's going in. And I'm like, all right, but why? Why'd you establish that and then solve it? Is it going to come up in the next film?
His spider senses.
I didn't know that was a thing about Spider-Man, like normally. That I know it's like a thing for Daredevil.
His spidey sense is tingling. That's like Spider-Man's thing.
No, but not like being overwhelmed. Like Daredevil's a thing where he gets overwhelmed by like having too much sensory input, things being too loud or whatever. But Spider-Man, is that a Spider-Man thing? Yeah, I don't know either. Certainly not something I think of when I think about Spider-Man.
I mean, something that I think is kind of cool with that whole thing is that like they kind of basically gave him like a trait of autism. Like, you know, Spider-Man is mildly autistic in some way. You know what I mean? Like he gets overwhelmed by input and he needs some way to dial it back. That's a classic symptom of autism.
You think this is an autistic? This is like Asperger's Spider-Man?
Well, I mean, not necessarily, but I think it's like it's a way that like if I was a kid or if I was a person and I had autism and I dealt with like being overwhelmed by things all the time, like overwhelming sensory input.
Yeah,
I have a superhero that can identify with me now. Like that's pretty cool. Kind of like is it Asperger's
Hawkeye.
with no Drax the Destroyer. Is it autism? No, it's not autism. I want to say something like that.
Well, Asperger's isn't in the DSM anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's just autism spectrum disorder now.
Oh, okay.
So Asperger's has now been folded in with autism traditional, and it's just spectrum. So you can either be like at the less side, which is more kind of the previously Asperger's, or the like full on like nonverbal autism side.
Okay, because I know I remember reading a story. I believe it was there was an autistic child.
Yeah, I do. I remember seeing that.
And Drax the Destroyer was like his hero because it was someone that he could relate to. And like Spider-Man maybe is just to a lesser degree, maybe Spider-Man now is another character, another superhero like that, which I think is fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Yeah, like
I don't really see that in him, but
okay.
I can kind of see what you're saying.
Yeah. Also, the web things, not in his wrists anymore. They're things that he made, which is truer to the comic, which I like. I think that's cool. And you also got to see like an old Apple computer in his room, which I thought was awesome too. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Again, fucking great movie. Mm-hmm. Really looking forward to the next movies. And I think with that, we're gonna move on to our new segment.
Yep. Hey, this is our new segment where we're going to be talking about various things. In this case, we're going to be talking about some game design topics. I think we'd both like to bring that in from time to time. Mm-hmm. And this one is prompted by the fact that I've been playing Deus Ex Human Revolution recently. I've played it a bunch of times. I've probably played it like twice, 2 or 3 times before, and I've never actually beaten it. I always kind of drop out before the end, but I think the game's really weird. It's got a lot of weird design choices in it, and so we're going to be talking about that, and yeah.
So, quick question. Overall, do you think the game is good?
I do think that overall the game is good.
Okay, so weird design choices and all, it's like, at the end of the day, it's a good game.
Yeah, and some things about it I'm not sure that I like that much. I do think overall it's a good game, but I also find that the pacing is kind of bad a lot of times.
Like how so? What does that mean?
So this kind of fits into what I'm saying about weird design choices, because I think at least half of this game, and probably more than half of this game, is essentially a walking simulator, because you spend some of the game like fighting enemies, but also you spend a lot of the game like walking around an office building reading stuff, or maybe sneaking around an office building but reading stuff. And for instance, in one of the early missions that you're sent on, and the missions that you're sent on are more combat oriented, but it's like you go through this combat oriented area, you kind of sneak or fight people or whatever your thing is, and then you get to a room full of computers. All of the computers you can hack, and all of them have stuff to read on them. But there's like 10 or 15 computers all in one room.
Now, are these are the things on these computers things that you have to read, or
No.
things that you can optionally read?
You can optionally read them.
Okay, so it's not necessary for the advancement of the primary story.
No. But like hacking into them and reading through stuff, even if you don't stop to read it, as long as you stop to hack it and then like click on the messages, you'll get things like the key codes to doors and places where treasure are, and then like additional experience points and money for hacking stuff. So like there's real gameplay reasons to do it, even if you don't stop to read it.
Okay. Okay.
But it creates a situation where you're going through like this tense situation where there's hostages being taken, and you're trying to stop this like terrorist group from killing people, and then you stop for 15 minutes and just look at computers.
See, yeah, that's really interesting, because this is something. So, like, even just thinking about working on the game that I'm working on now, this is something that I'm really struggling with, because So you've got, on one hand, you've got things like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, which are very linear, story-driven games. And while there are some, I mean, there are more side things you can do in Tomb Raider 2013 than in the Uncharted games. In the Uncharted games, it's just, here's this thing, do this thing, go to this next thing, do this thing, go to this next thing, do this thing. And there isn't really any side stuff, right? There aren't all these computers to hack. That works very, very well because there's a very tight, very concise story that they want to tell, and that's the sole reason for the game.
Yeah.
And a game like The Last of Us is very similar, right? And what I find interesting about those games is that sometimes gameplay, especially when in sections that are particularly difficult, gameplay actually detracts from my overall experience of the game because I just want to get to the next story element.
Yeah.
And it sounds like what you're saying here is that the developers of Human Revolution kind of tried to build in more stuff, right? Like they tried to maybe like flesh the world out a bit more.
And this is something specific to the Deus Ex games. Well, the first one and this one specifically is that for most of the game, there are not specific combat environments and non-combat environments. They all kind of exist in the same contiguous area. So there's kind of like a couple of overworld areas. And you might just walk through an area and then you'll get in a fight in just like one small part of that area. Or there'll be an area that is like has a whole bunch of gang members in it and you can go into that area. But it's like those combat areas are not clearly defined from the rest of the areas. Like compared to something like Skyrim, where basically any NPC you encounter outside of a town more or less is going to be hostile.
Right.
And anything in a town probably not hostile. You could start a fight, but it's not going to happen automatically.
Right.
There's not as much of a clear distinction in these games.
So is that something that you like or think is a good idea, or is that something that you have a problem with?
Actually, I think that it works really pretty well in these games specifically.
The lack of distinction?
Yeah. For one thing, there's one really key thing to this, which is that the game needs to indicate to you whether an NPC is going to be hostile at any given moment. And Deus Ex Human Revolution has a lot of methods to do that. So you have a radar and people are colored based on whether or not they're hostile. It has like a stealth system. So if you start walking into an area that's like gang territory, like the gang members will go to an alarmed status. So then you know like, okay, I'm going to start something if I keep doing this.
Okay.
So you can back out. And same thing, like one very basic thing is that the cursor changes colors. If you're looking at somebody who's hostile, they're red. If they're friendly, they're green.
Right, okay.
And I've played some games like this where that is not the case. There's no real indication about whether or not somebody's going to be hostile until you walk up and they see you and then either attack you or don't. And that can be a real big problem.
Now, do you think that there are any reasons to do that? Like where that would be, I don't know, like maybe good idea is the wrong term, but like where that could fit in the game world? Or do you think that that's just always like an inappropriate or troublesome thing to do, not having the indication about hostility?
I think it's always troublesome, but I don't think that...
Yeah, me too.
But you could make it troublesome on purpose. Like, let's say you wanted to make a game that was all about your character being paranoid.
Yeah.
Then you might do that. So then the player is always paranoid about whether or not somebody's going to attack them. And then make some sort of consequence for attacking people who aren't hostile. So you're always feeling like a little bit jumpy, like you're not sure whether or not you're about to be attacked.
Yeah.
But it's still troublesome. It's still annoying, but it's specifically built to be annoying, and it's part of the gameplay in that case. It's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
Whereas other games, it's not really part of the challenge. It's just something that somebody overlooked and is trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Deus Ex, in Human Revolution, they have the indicators, which is good.
Yeah.
Because that's like your character isn't paranoid, right?
Yeah.
But they have these overlapping sections where you'll have hostile NPCs and non-hostile NPCs, correct?
Yeah.
So are they like, does that mean that like in like a courtyard area, for example, you'll have 7 NPCs and 5 of those will be hostile and 2 won't? Or is it like just that they're 2 separate areas just in very close proximity to each other?
Well, you might have like gang territory where gang members are hostile, but like there's some bums and stuff who aren't hostile.
Oh, okay.
And similarly, you might have an area that has police, but like a few gang members hanging around too.
Interesting.
It's much more mixed up. There's not clear delineations between the areas, except for the missions, which they do send you on. But even missions might have some non-hostile stuff. But missions are much more focused on like the sneaky, shooty gameplay kind of thing.
Okay. So what specifically is, I guess, maybe the issue that you have with like this hacking thing, with like this room with all these computers?
Just because it takes so much time to go through those. And even if you don't care about the story stuff, like you can play the game differently. You still probably want the gameplay bonuses that those give, the experience points, money, and whatnot. So it's a weird, it would make more sense like if I was designing that level, I would not have put that room in. I would have sprinkled all those terminals throughout. So you'd maybe fight a couple of dudes, then read a terminal, then fight a couple of dudes, then find a terminal kind of thing. Instead of like fighting some dudes for a few minutes and then finding a room of 10 terminals that you're just going to go through one at a time, all 10 terminals.
Right. Because even like in universe, like, so I'm trying to think how to say this. When I play games, I obviously like to put myself in the position of the protagonist, right? Where I can't think of a situation where I would be fighting through, you know, enemies, right, trying to accomplish a goal, where I would stop and take half an hour
to read a bunch of
into
stuff?
a room, to hack into a bunch of computers and read a bunch of things, no matter how interesting whatever's on there might be, you know? Now, aside from, like, I like your idea of kind of sprinkling those things throughout. I will say the one, challenge that I would see to that is where would those be, and kind of making them, because something I would imagine, not having played this game, not having, you know, been in this room that you're talking about, is that it would be very easy for the storytellers to just dump a bunch of story in there, and it would kind of make sense in the universe. Whereas if, for example, you're going through a level and there's, you know, a security terminal in one area, and that would be where one of these things is. And then a little bit further down, you have, you know, like a manager's terminal, and then you have somebody else's, like, that would need to be much more contextual. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it does make sense that, like, this is an office space. There's a bunch of cubicles with a bunch of terminals. Like, yeah, sure, obviously.
Yeah. And if they didn't do that, I would be frustrated that there's all these terminals that I can't do anything with. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way to interact with them. I'd be like, oh, that seems like a wasted thing.
And I think Fallout tends to do it a little bit better because it has much the same kind of setup where there's terminals with data, but they're kind of spread throughout a level more evenly.
Well, and maybe Human Revolution is not what I'm thinking, but I'm thinking of Human Revolution as being more akin to The Last of Us or Uncharted than to something like Skyrim. Is that accurate or no?
No. It kind of exists in a weird hybrid position, I think. It's not as open as something like Skyrim because it kind of drops you. It's like level based. It's like linear level based, but each level is. But there's maybe only like 5 levels in the whole game, and most of those levels are like huge.
Oh,
like really,
so it's like
really
mini
huge.
Skyrim areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the same kind of thing that like a number of games have done this, but
that seems like that does kind of put them in a weird position because it sounds like they're trying to tell, you know, a somewhat, I mean, playing through the demo, I did play through the demo and seeing the trailers and stuff. It seems like they're trying to tell a fairly tight, fairly concise, straightforward story, but they're doing so in a fairly open world-ish environment.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, like, for all the Bethesda games that I've played, Skyrim and Fallout and all that stuff, I've never actually finished the primary story.
Yeah.
Because it was never terribly engaging. The world was much more engaging to me than the primary story that it was trying to tell. And so it sounds like maybe Human Revolution kind of falls into this weird middle valley where they're trying to tell a story that is interesting, but they've also got all this extra content that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to explore while you're going through the main story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does make sense to explore because a lot of the reason you're there, I think, it is for the environmental stuff and for like the setting for this specific cyberpunk Deus Ex setting. And a lot of that is built through the fact that you can just walk around and read people's emails and stuff and see that they have emails from the Nigerian prince asking them for money to transfer them a whole bunch of money. Like, that's in the game, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
And that stuff's good, and it builds a lot of stuff. It builds a lot of what's the
like
word?
world,
World.
like
It's
like
good world
environmental
building.
storytelling.
Yeah, but it means that also a lot of the game is just that kind of environmental storytelling, which makes it feel more like something like Gone Home. So a lot of the time when I'm playing the game, I really feel like I'm playing something like Gone Home, and then with occasional bursts of like beating up two guys and then reading their emails, like. You know, kind of what I'm saying? And I think that's a weird choice. And I'm surprised that that game is as popular as it is, considering how many people really seem to take issue with those walking simulator games.
Is that a thing? Because, I mean, maybe I just haven't been paying attention, but I haven't seen people having a problem with walking simulator games. I actually got Firewatch recently during like Sony's whatever their big sale was for PS4 they had recently, like their fire sale or whatever. I haven't had a chance to play it yet because I've been so busy, but like, I mean, that seems to have been fairly well received, and that was, and I mean, same thing with like Gone Home. You know, those seem to be very well received, very well respected games.
I know people who don't like walking simulators, like really for sure don't like walking simulators. Not that they think that they shouldn't exist or they're not games, but they're just like, I don't want to play that.
What's their reason?
I don't get to shoot anyone. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
it's not what they're there for. They don't want to sit down and kind of like watch an interactive movie, kind of have that experience where they're just walking around listening to people. They want action and adventure and stuff. That's not as much happening in those. And it doesn't have the same gameplay elements. They're not based around the same kind of essential ideas of like learning new things and then applying them in different ways. You know what I'm saying? That is so essential to traditional kind of game setup, where you get a new item or technique or something, and then you kind of learn how to use that, and then there's maybe a boss fight where you apply that skill. Like there's that repeated cycle of learning a new thing, applying it, learning and applying that I think kind of defines traditional games that those games absolutely don't use. Like they're very different kind of experiences. Not that they're not games, but that they're a strictly different type of game.
And so it sounds like you're saying that Human Revolution is a weird combination of those two things.
Yeah, I do think that that's kind of the case. And I also find it weird because I feel like there's almost like you'll just be going through and you'll be fighting enemies, and then there'll just be like a little bit of like almost an audible thunk, and now you're just walking around reading emails for a while. Even though the environments are pretty like mixed together, it's like you fight people for a while and then you're just walking around for a while, and then you fight people for a while and then you're just walking around for a while. And I think Fear had a little bit of this issue too. Have you ever played the Fear games?
No, I've always wanted to, but no.
Yeah, I liked the first Fear, but it was very much like, and Fear had literal audible cues where you'd be walking around and there'd be segments with no enemies, but horror stuff would happen. So it'd be a horror game, there'd be weird sounds, and like you'd be having weird visions and being crazy, and then you'd hear enemy head, and that meant that there were enemies in the area, and now you're fighting enemies. And then you'd fight a bunch of enemies, and then it'd be like,
gotcha.
And you'd hear stuff like a box would fall off a shelf or something, and now you're having a horror experience.
Gotcha.
And I feel like those kind of things, when they don't integrate very well, create kind of like a stop and start kind of pacing that gets kind of awkward. And I think that's my main issue with Human Revolution, is that I feel like the switch between those two things and kind of going back and forth, and the fact that they're not as well integrated as maybe I'd like, makes the pacing a little weird.
So what would be an example of them being integrated well?
I think audio logs are helpful.
Well, but like as far as a game, like what would be an example of a game that integrates multiple play types, specifically like combat and walking simulator, that you think did it well?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that, but I think
gotcha.
While I think about that, one thing that is helpful is audio logs, because you don't have to stop to read something. So you can still be fighting a guy or be looking around the environment or doing another task while listening to the audio log. So it kind of blends them together a little bit better. Oh, yeah, you know what game is better about this and has audio logs? System Shock. I think System Shock is a lot like Deus Ex,
Yeah.
but more integrated. It also, to be fair, System Shock has kind of a more free roaming environment, but the environments are much more enclosed and not as big as Deus Ex.
Because they're all indoors,
they're
right?
all indoors. But you can kind of walk back to old environments. They're very exploration based. They're more Castlevania-y than just level based. But still, it incorporates a lot of the same like environmental storytelling and exploration, but still incorporating that combat. And I think one of the reasons too is because it has respawning enemies. So if you're backtracking through an area you've been through, you're still going to have some fighting, which Deus Ex does not have. So if you walk through an area, knock out all the guys in it, they will remain knocked out. So if you have to walk back through that area in this big, huge level that you're trying to explore all of, you're not going to have that combat experience again. So you kind of like slowly whittle down the total number of combat experiences until you're just walking around with no combat. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting
and I think
an interesting thing because either the person playing the game will like these mixture things or they won't. Well, obviously, I guess. But like, I guess what I'm thinking is I don't see a way to combine play types like this in a way that would be like universally accepted as this is a good way to do it. You know what I mean?
And I think kind of one of my issues too that I run into this is that I think a lot of the reason people like this game and a lot of the reason it feels so unique is because of those things that I kind of feel are awkward. Like that awkwardness is one of the unique things about this game.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could really change it and make it feel the same. I think there definitely could be some small changes to make that would make it feel better, like evening out terminal distribution so that way you're not like stopping for a really long time in one place, and things like letting you listen to audio logs rather than reading a text log. I think there's some quality of life improvements that could help the pacing.
Or maybe even like what if like kind of on the, even if they still had text, like what if like something I just thought of is like what if there were kind of like in Tomb Raider 2013, where to like save your game and do stuff, like you would go to campfires or you go to like campsites, right? And so there was this built-in kind of lull in the game, but you initiated it. So let's say, for example, in Human Revolution, let's say that there was some kind of campfire equivalent, right, where you'd go to like save a game or something like that, but your character would sit down for whatever they're doing, and that would be where, like, when you hacked a computer, you wouldn't read the text or listen to the audio log. Then you would store these things up, so that when you went to like save your game or do whatever, you went to this campfire area, then you could go through all that stuff, and it makes sense in the world because, like, for example, again, thinking of myself as being this protagonist. If I'm exhausted and I'm sitting down and I'm kind of taking a breather, well, then it makes sense that I would kind of go back through and do all this stuff.
Well, to be fair, it does drop copies of all the emails on the computers into your log. So you can go back through your log and read them later if you really wanted to.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah. Does it provide a kind of like what I'm talking about, like a campfire area in the game where it would make sense to go through all those things? Or does it just kind of leave it to you to stand there in the middle of the world and read through all this stuff?
There is not like a campfire kind of area, but like I said, like enemies are persistent. So if you knock out some dudes, there won't be any dudes there. So you can generally have confidence. And in most of the big sprawling areas, there's plenty of areas that don't have anything that will bother you in it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think this is a really intriguing problem in general when designing a game. Is like, do we want to go purely one gameplay type? Or do we want to try to combine multiple things? Because I think there's this probably fairly unattainable dream for a game, which is to have a really tight, compelling, fast-moving, well-written story and this compelling world, right? Like, not just create the resources that you need to tell the story, but like to build a fully fleshed out world and then tell a story in that world. Well, the reality is that those are actually two conflicting things. Like you have this big world, this big open world scenario, like a Skyrim. Well, telling a single narrative in that world is actually a functionally difficult thing to do. It's not just that like coming up with the narrative and having it make sense in the world is difficult. It's that doing that makes the environmental stuff kind of antithetical in a sense. Like they kind of play against each other.
I think that some of this has to do with how we're developing new types of narratives. Because I think there are some new types of narratives that are only suited to this like big explory kind of thing. And that's kind of where Dark Souls is going. And it has been, is that it's got this weird narrative that's hard to follow, but it's very much, it's there, but it's all environmental storytelling, and it's all through just you exploring the world.
Well, and No Man's Sky looks like it's going to be very much the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I wonder, well, I mean, it looks like more games are kind of going that way, which is interesting to me because that very much lends itself to one of my favorite styles of play, which is, like Skyrim, right? Just go around and do stuff. And if out of exploring that world, like a cohesive narrative kind of emerges just as I'm playing, that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. This is good. I like this. I think we should definitely keep doing this. This is fun.
Yeah, and don't get the impression that I don't like Deus Ex Human Revolution. I do. And I'd like to see more like big level games. I think those are really interesting, where it's not like open world, but it's like really huge levels, because you can still have some like tight stuff where you have like reasonably like orchestrated levels like you do in a linear game, but you kind of just have like a whole lot of paths through the level. See,
that's interesting that you bring that up, because from what I've been hearing and reading, that's how Uncharted 4 is set up. That's the way that's like Naughty Dog they described it as neither linear nor open world. They described it as wide linear, kind of like almost exactly what you just mentioned. It's not that there are multiple paths like in the game or like whatever. There are multiple paths through a single level that all lead to the same place. There's just multiple ways to do the one thing that you're supposed to do for a given section.
And Deus Ex is very much designed like that, in a way that works really well with the gameplay, and the leveling system, because you can put skills into a lot of different things. And so if you've put skills into the ability that lets you knock down walls, there's a way that you can get into somewhere by knocking down a wall. If you put it into hacking, there's a way that you can get into where you're going by hacking something. If you put it into stealth, there's a way that you can stealth your way in. That kind of thing.
Interesting.
So there's lots of different solutions to any kind of puzzle.
Man, that's... Making games is hard.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're gonna cut this off here. So basically, it sounds like Human Revolution does a good job dealing with two very distinct types of gameplay and kind of melding them together with some awkward results here and there. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say that overall it works, but it just needs some quality of life improvements, I think.
Yeah, maybe like some just polish. Well, like you said, redistribution of things and kind of smooth things out a bit.
At least that's what I can think of off the top of my head. There might be some more elegant solutions that just like I can't think of, because I think this is really a hard problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, so that's it for our first iteration of the whatever the fuck we want to talk about segment. So with that, we will go on to the next piece, which will be us saying goodbye for this episode. All right, that brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed making it.
And I hope you enjoyed the new game design topic setting. Tell us if you enjoyed that.
Yes. You can tell us by tweeting us on Twitter at Egghead Anarchy. If you want to talk to me specifically, tell me that you enjoyed it. You can tweet me at BSGBrian on Twitter.
And if you're not wrong and you want to tell me, you can contact me at Senior Dongato on Twitter.
Yes. We are also working on getting an eggheadanarchy.com website up. We have also submitted our podcast to Stitcher. So hopefully by the next episode, we will be on Stitcher, as well as Yahoo. Oh my God. As well as YouTube and SoundCloud.
Yeah. See you guys next time.